You know that specific moment at the office kitchen, or the desk, or the break room, when you open the container you packed the night before, and someone nearby is putting on their coat to go out, or checking the delivery app, or asking if anyone wants to split a table at the place around the corner? And you say, no thanks. Not with explanation, not with apology, just no. And the container is open, and the decision was already made last night before any of this required any thought. The lunch cost about $3 to make. It will take 12 minutes to eat. Nobody in the room is thinking about it as a financial decision, including you, because it stopped being a decision a long time ago. While across the office, someone is already calculating whether the Thai place or the sandwich shop is faster today, and whether $15 is too much, or fine, or something they'll think about later. Here is what almost nobody calculates about buying lunch every day. The individual purchase is never the problem. $15 is $15. On any given Tuesday, it is an entirely reasonable amount to spend on a meal. Convenient, satisfying, requiring nothing from the morning that the morning didn't already have enough to ask for. The problem is the Tuesday after that, and the one after that, and the 248 remaining Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays in the working year. Each one individually reasonable, collectively arriving at a number that most people have never once sat down to calculate. $15 a day, 5 days a week, 50 weeks a year. And the number is larger than most people have ever sat down to calculate. Per year. Just for lunch. Not the coffee, not the occasional dinner out, not the weekend, just the weekday lunch, the default purchase, the one that never felt like a spending decision because it never felt like anything other than what people do. And the system is designed around exactly that. Every delivery app, every restaurant near every office building, every food court in every corporate district exists because the weekday lunch is the most reliable daily purchase in the working adult's budget. Reliable precisely because it never feels like a decision, only like a given. Nobody presents that number to you when you leave the house without your lunch on a Monday morning. You only meet it later, in the quiet arithmetic of a year that passed without the number ever appearing on a single line item, because it was spread across 250 receipts, each one small enough to file away without looking. There is a name for why the lunch outside always wins in the moment, even when the logic of bringing one is completely clear. Behavioral economists call it present bias. Research by Daniel Kahneman and colleagues showed that people systematically overvalue immediate rewards relative to future ones, not by a little, but by a significant margin that holds even when the future benefit is clearly larger. The convenience of not preparing lunch is immediate. The saving of $15 is real, but diffuse, spread across a year, never arriving as a single satisfying number in the way that the convenience arrives as a single satisfying morning. Bringing lunch to work every day is not a discipline exercise. It is a structural solution, removing the daily decision entirely by making it once, in a context where the future benefit feels real, so that the morning never has to compete against the immediate appeal of doing nothing instead. And present bias finds its ideal conditions in what the culture has already decided the lunch break is supposed to mean. For years, the social script has been consistent. Leaving the office for lunch is the break you earned, the air you need, the networking that happens informally over a table somewhere. Bringing lunch is either not being able to afford otherwise, or not being social enough to bother, or not understanding that the real value of the lunch hour is not the lunch. Bringing lunch to work every day is not antisocial. It is recognizing that the real value of 45 minutes away from a screen does not require spending $15 to access it, and that the social connection the lunch break supposedly provides is available at a fraction of the cost, or at no cost to anyone who separates the break from the purchase. And the numbers have been confirming this for decades. $3,750 per year, invested consistently at a 7% average annual return, compounds to over $350,000 over a 30-year career. Not from a single large financial decision, from lunch. 3 forces. A brain that weighs this morning's convenience against next decade's compounding and finds the convenience wins, every time, in isolation. A culture that reads bringing lunch as the lesser choice. And a number, the one nobody ever
calculates until it's already spent, quietly proving that the smallest daily defaults are never actually small.
It was there the first week the habit became automatic, not the first week it was attempted, but the first week it happened every single day without any particular effort, without negotiating with the morning, without the Tuesday where it almost didn't happen, and realizing that the decision had quietly moved from something that required choosing to something that simply was, the way any habit eventually stops feeling like a habit and starts feeling like the way things are. It was there the afternoon of adding up 3 months of weekday lunches, the ones brought versus the ones that would have been bought, and arriving at a number that had never appeared on any statement, had never been categorized in any budget, but existed nonetheless, in the specific
arithmetic of 250 small decisions made differently.
It was there the conversation with a colleague who mentioned, almost in passing, what they spent on food during the work week. The lunches, the coffees, the occasional afternoon snack from the place downstairs, and arrived at a number that they clearly had never added up before, assembled on the spot from fragments of memory, visibly larger than expected, and immediately reframed as not that much really when you think about it, which was exactly the reframe that had been making the number invisible for every year it had been accumulating. It was there the specific morning of packing the container the night before, not quickly, not as an afterthought, but as the last thing done before the kitchen light went off, and the specific, unremarkable satisfaction of a decision that was already finished before the day had asked for anything. These are not people who don't enjoy eating out. Most of them eat at restaurants. Some of them eat well, deliberately, on evenings and weekends, choosing the meal, choosing the place, spending what it costs without thinking twice. What they do not do is spend $15 every weekday on a meal that was chosen by default and eaten without particular attention because the alternative required something from the morning that the morning didn't feel like giving. They are the person at the office who, when asked if they're coming to lunch, gives an answer instead of a pause, something close to this: "I've got something, you go ahead." That is not someone who can't afford the restaurant. That is someone for whom the question was answered a long time ago. Not every day, not as a negotiation with the morning, but once, as a system that has been running without requiring a decision every time it operates. And the lunch is rarely the only thing that works this way. The same person who made the lunch decision once tends to be the same person who automated the savings transfer and removed from the morning every question that didn't need to be answered there. Not as a philosophy, just as the natural result of noticing that repeated decisions are expensive and that most of them only needed to be made once. They do not think about what lunch will cost today. The question retired itself, along with the daily friction of whether the morning would cooperate, whether the queue would be manageable, whether $15 was too much or fine or something to think about later. And the next time the lunch invitation arrives, that answer is already made. Now, finally, the objection. Bringing lunch to work is a small saving. It's not going to change anyone's financial situation. There are bigger levers to pull than $15 a day. This is not about people who eat out for genuine reasons. Client lunches, team meetings, situations where the meal is the work. If the lunch serves a purpose beyond the meal itself, nothing here is arguing against that. This is about the daily default of buying lunch because preparing it never quite made it onto the list of things worth doing. And the size carries less weight than the objection assumes. $3,750 is not a small amount. It is more than most people deliberately set aside in a full year of saving. And it arrives not through a single financial decision, but through 250 small ones, each individually beneath notice, collectively significant. But the saving is not the point. The point is eliminating a decision that kept reappearing every morning, under pressure, in the worst possible conditions for making it well. The money is what the decision was costing. The decision itself was the thing worth removing. The people who always bring lunch to work are not optimizing a small variable. They are demonstrating something about how they think about repeated decisions in general. That the ones worth making once should only be made once, and that the morning is not the time to make them. Here is what most people get backwards. The person who buys lunch every day is not saving time or mental energy. They are spending $15 to avoid a 10-minute task and making that trade 250 times a year in a context where the 10-minute task was always going to happen anyway, just in the morning instead of the evening before, under pressure instead of without it. The person who brings lunch did not find a way to add something to the morning. They removed a decision from it entirely by making it once, the night before, when the future cost was visible and the convenience of doing nothing hadn't yet arrived to make the argument. Most people think about lunch as a daily decision. These people made it once. And the person who made it once is not living with less. They are simply refusing to pay daily for a decision that only needed to be made once, and finding that once it was made, the morning got considerably easier and the year got considerably cheaper. There is a moment. People who always bring lunch to work all describe in almost the same way. It is not the first week the habit held. It is not the month the number first became visible. It is an ordinary Wednesday, the container open on the desk, the rest of the office somewhere between the queue and the delivery app, and noticing, briefly, that there is nothing to decide, no calculation running in the background, no $15 question waiting for an answer that depends on how the morning went. Not satisfaction at the saving, not pride in the habit, just the specific, unremarkable absence of a daily friction that most people have simply accepted as permanent because nobody told them it was optional. Not because the restaurant isn't good, because the decision was already made, quietly, the night before, in a kitchen where the future was more present than the morning was going to allow it to be. The lunch was never the point. What making it the night before said about every other small decision was. 10 years from now, nobody asks what you had for lunch on a Wednesday. They ask whether you ever once let 250 small decisions add up to something, or let them add up to nothing instead. Do you bring lunch to work? And has anyone ever made you feel like that was the smaller choice? Drop it below. We read every single one.